Again, you see them everywhere. You go in any Freemasonic temple or secret society building, and you'll find, again, the black and white squares on the floor. And this is not just Freemasonic. Again, you go back into the ancient world, you see the same thing reoccurring. The floor is black and white squares. This is a policeman from England, and I've noticed in America, you see the same thing, the black and white squares on the uniform and what have you. That is to indicate the Freemason secret society, although most policemen don't realize this. Now, this is Westminster Abbey, and the same you'll find in Notre Dame and these other so-called great cathedrals of the world. The floor is black and white squares. Why? Because the same brotherhood that uses this symbolism built the things and controls them to this very day. When you get into the transnational corporations, again you see the symbolism, because as we'll come to as we go along in a few minutes, all these apparently unconnected areas of our lives, banking, transnational corporations, oil companies, connect into the same group, the same controlling force, and so all over the major companies of the world, banks and what have you, you see the brotherhood symbols. This is ARCO, Atlantic Richfield Oil Company, and there its symbol, the pyramid with a capstone missing, looked at from above. One of the classic symbols. Chevron. What you need to do to see the symbolism of this is to see this not as two one-dimensional ticks, but as two three-dimensional boxes, one on top of another, which is very symbolic in the secret language. One square equals we control all that is right, all that is just, all that is fair. This is where we get everyday phrases from, like a square deal or being fair and square. One square on top of another square in any form means we control all that is right and all that is wrong, all that is positive, all that is negative, all that is just, all that is unjust, all that is this, all that is that. We control everything. And so that's what that's saying. And so appropriately, when you look in the main lobby of the Houses of Parliament in Britain, you find the two squares, one laid on the other, the so-called eight-pointed star, and that says we control everything in the Brotherhood secret language. Also, as I travel the world, the number of times I see police forces have their badge in the center of two squares laid on top of each other. This is Sussex Police in Britain, but I've seen it all over the world, the same thing. Very appropriate. We control everything. One of the most important strands of this bloodline, going back to the Anunnaki of the ancient world and this hybrid race that was created, is France. And particularly an area of France and near across the German border called Lorraine, or Alsace-Lorraine. And the House of Lorraine has been a real home for the purest of these reptile Martian or reptile-human bloodlines. And the House of Lorraine developed this symbol, the double cross. See that there on this guy. Double cross. That's where we get the phrase being double-crossed, being manipulated. How appropriate. And so you take the double cross, and we see it in the modern world in Exxon, the Rockefeller-controlled or guided oil company, with the double cross in the symbol. Again, to the uninitiated, people would look at that and say, oh, it's just a symbol, mate. But actually, to the initiates who run this show, it actually means something. A Texaco oil company, esoteric symbols again. The circle, the pentagram, and the T-cross of Freemasonry, the Tau cross it's also called. Again, symbols are talking to the subconscious. When you look at that symbol, you can't hear words coming off it in a conscious way, but it's actually resonating an energy that talks to the subconscious. This is why advertisers who are in this knowledge stream manipulate advertising in a way that they use certain colors, certain phrases, certain symbols to talk to the subconscious and get us to then buy the product in a conscious way, thinking we've made the decision when we've been stimulated from a much deeper level. Subliminal advertising is massive. Amoco, the oil company with the lighted torch. Again, the same symbol that keeps recurring all over the place. The British royal family, the Windsors, are one of the most identifiable of these reptile-human bloodlines that have been controlling the world increasingly powerfully for so long. In the ancient world, on caves and underground areas in Cappadocia, an ancient Phoenician center, you find the splayed cross on the wall, what we call now the Maltese cross. And so appropriately on the crown that crowns the monarch of England, this is the crown on which, or with which, the Queen of England was crowned back in the 50s, 1953, you see again the Maltese cross, and that keeps coming up again and again. Also on that was the fleur-de-lis. The fleur-de-lis is a symbol of Nimrod. Here are some of the sticks the Queen holds, you know, in the ceremonies and stuff, scepters they call them. And once again, you see the Maltese crosses and the doves. The dove, Queen Semiramis, the deity of Babylon, on the various scepters and bits and pieces that they use in their royal ceremonies and regalia and heraldry and stuff in Britain, because this to an initiate means something very significant. This is the Dutch royal family. Again, you've got the splayed cross, the Maltese cross, and the Dutch royal family are the same bloodline as the British royal family, because the royal families of Europe are one bloodline, just offshoots of it. And all the surviving royal families of Europe are blood related to William of Orange, William III, who helped this scam to really motor when he became King of England, as I talked about earlier. And one of the members of the Dutch royal family is a guy called Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, and he'll come up as we go along, good mate of Prince Philip, both knowingly manipulating this agenda I'm talking about. So we go to the Nazis. Now, of course, the Allies were against the Nazis. I read that somewhere too. But it's funny, the same symbolism comes up. On this Nazi, you've got the Maltese cross. It was a big Nazi symbol. You've got the flying disc, which was a symbol of the sun in Egypt and other ancient cultures. And as we go along here, here's the classic Heil Hitler symbol. What was that? It was a symbol from a ritual of a secret society, a satanic secret society called the Order of the Golden Dawn, involving a guy called Aleister Crowley, which was working through both the Allies, the British, and the Nazis during the Second World War. And here's a guy who's he collects them, this fella. Another Nazi, look, he's got the Maltese cross. He's got the skull and bones, he's got the reverse swastika, the sun symbol of the Phoenicians, and he's got the eagle, which is symbolic of the phoenix, the sunbird of the Phoenicians and the Egyptians. And this is why you see eagles everywhere, in coats of arms and national badges, not least the United States. Here it is. The original, apparently, coat of arms of the United States actually had a phoenix until it was switched to the eagle. And if you count the number of arrows there, the number of feathers, the number of letters in that name, and all this massive symbolism, they all add up to key esoteric numbers like 13, 9, etc., because initiates created this. Every so often there are certain events and certain people which pull in all strands of the various elements I've talked about so far over these hours. And the assassination, because that's what it was, of Diana, Princess of Wales, had all these elements of bloodlines, of royalty, of secret societies, and of the symbolism of the secret societies in the actual assassination itself. In The Biggest Secret, I've gone into this in tremendous detail in one chapter in particular, and there is a video documentary planned of this Diana assassination and the background to it. Maybe it will even have been done and be available by the time you see this. So I'm not going to go into the Diana thing in great detail here because it's done elsewhere, but I just want to go through a few things. From close confidence of Diana, it's very clear that she realized after a while that she had been pulled in for a specific purpose. She used to call herself the Windsor broodmare. The Spencer family is an ancient bloodline which is interbred with many of the aristocratic families of Britain, of Europe, and of America. Spencers are distant cousins, for instance, of the Rockefellers. And she realized that they'd drawn her into the Windsor web because they wanted her genes. They wanted to fuse the Windsor genes with the Spencer genes to produce another version of a genetic hybrid with a particular genetic structure. And from the very start, it's clear when you look at the story and the information that she was pulled in and identified for this from a very, very early age. She was actually brought up on the Sandringham estate and knew the Queen and Prince Charles and stuff from a very early age. The Windsors are, this is the Queen here, an ancient reptile human bloodline. And I was kind of surprised, although my research was going that way, to be told that by a confidant of Diana that her nickname for the Windsors was the lizards or the reptiles. And she used to say, in all seriousness, they're not human. And she knew far more about this background by the time she died than people in the public domain would ever realize. And she'd certainly realized what the Windsors were about and where they came from. Now, this is a guy who has been going around saying that Diana and his son Dodi were assassinated. I haven't got time to go into why someone might feel it acceptable for their son to die in a road crash, but if you read The Biggest Secret, you can see some of the background to this. If we start judging whether something is possible by what we would do, we're going to lose the plot, because not everyone thinks like everyone else. And when you look at the background to Diana's assassination, the person that had complete control of her security and her movements in the crucial period, days leading up to it, but particularly on that specific day, was Mohammed al-Fayed. And when you look at his background, as I've said in The Biggest Secret, you know when Mohammed al-Fayed is trying to kid you, trying to tell you something that's not true because his lips are moving. It's the way you can see it, because this guy has lied his way through his whole economic and business career. And he's done exactly that over Diana's assassination. There was a guy that I've mentioned a number of times in my books called Tony Blair. Tony Blair was brought through by this brotherhood to become Prime Minister of Britain. And I have a contact who, for a long time, performed satanic ceremonies in which ritual human sacrifice took place of children and of adults. And one of the key places, which I've talked about in my books, is a place known as the Castle of Darkness in Belgium. In the late 80s, she says that at a ritual sacrifice that she performed was the Queen of England, which she's done sacrifices for many times, the Queen Mother, Tony Blair, who was then just a lower-ranked politician, and Mohammed al-Fayed, father of Dodi. And yet in the public arena we get this royal family on one side and Dodi Fayed's father, Mohammed al-Fayed, on the other, when in fact they lock into the same controlling force. And he had control of her movements on the crucial day. There's the ISIS symbol of ancient Egypt, very close to that headgear that he posed with for a British newspaper. Now again, if you're going to kind of follow the symbolism and the background to Diana's assassination, you have to go back into the ancient world. You can pick one of these one of the pure key reptile human bloodlines up in Troy, ancient Troy, which is what we now call Turkey. You can follow this bloodline through the Caucasus Mountains and into Europe and into what we call France. In fact, France is named after these people. They called themselves the Sicambrian Franks. And they had a royal offshoot, and eventually became known by this royal offshoot, called the Merovingians. And the Merovingians set up the city we call Paris. You're looking at a part of the modern Paris, which was the place that they established the original Paris. And they named the city after one of the people involved in the Trojan Wars, a guy called Prince Paris. And there's Notre Dame, Our Lady, Diana, Semiramis, Isis Cathedral. And this was where Paris kind of came out of with the Merovingians many, many centuries ago. Now, these Merovingians, Franks, Sicambrian Franks, worshipped the goddess Diana, who was one of the great goddesses of the ancient world. And they built underground chambers just outside the original Paris to do their sacrifices and ceremonies to the goddess Diana. Of course, as Paris has got bigger and bigger, the area of that sacrifice area for the goddess Diana is now modern Paris. And it's still an underground chamber. That point is called the Pont d'Alma Tunnel, where Diana died in 1997.